Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some seriously profound insights from Dzogchen teachings, specifically from Lama Lina. We're going to explore how our minds quite literally create the reality we live in, and more importantly, how we can actually find freedom from the endless, frankly exhausting stories we constantly tell ourselves. Let's just jump right in with a question that might completely flip your daily reality on its head. Are you trapped by a story that never actually happened? Lama Lina shares this deeply personal realization from her own extensive meditation practice. She discovered that the major PTSD trauma she thought she'd suffered from in her childhood, it literally never happened. She had built years of feelings, actions, and a whole identity around a story that another little kid had simply made up. It really forces us to ask ourselves how many of our own core beliefs are built on entirely fabricated events. And that perfectly illustrates our universal human problem, beautifully captured in this old Tibetan saying. It says, "You have freely given your thoughts the rope attached to your nose ring." Think about that. We don't just have thoughts, we surrender our total agency to them. We manufacture these elaborate belief systems about what we can't do, who we are, what we should be, and then we just hand over the leash. We let these completely fabricated thoughts lead us around by the nose like a yak. Which brings us to our first core concept, the stories we tell, and how they actually create our reality. To show you exactly how we weave these wild webs, Lama Lina shares a fascinating anecdote about the human brain's desperate need to just manufacture meaning out of thin air. She once told her students to use a simple pebble as a meditation focus, right? And then later, she simply instructed them to take the pebble away, but keep practicing. Well, by the very next week, her students had invented a vast, complex mythology around this rock. Some insisted she meant you had to return the pebble to its exact origin, to, leave the land undisturbed. Others thought you had to throw it in the ocean. A few even theorized you had to swallow the thing. She hadn't said any of that. The crucial takeaway here is that our grand narratives, they aren't based on objective reality. Whether we tell ourselves a tragic story or a joyful story about the exact same circumstances often just depends on our current hormonal fluctuations, our digestion, or honestly, whether we had enough coffee or sleep that morning. We aren't having feelings about what happened. We're having feelings about what we think happened, usually based entirely on our current mood. So how did we get this way? Let's look at part 2, what we'll call the original oops, or the birth of duality. To truly understand why we're so fundamentally addicted to making things up, we have to take a quick cosmic detour. Lama Lina playfully calls this the original oops. So picture pure, perfectly still primordial awareness. Suddenly, the clear light of emptiness passes through a prism, emerging as this beautiful rainbow light. Pure awareness perceived this beauty and simply reached out to grasp it in its hand, kind of like a kitten suddenly chasing a laser pointer on the floor. That reaching, that attempt to hold onto the light, instantly created a split. It was the birth of the illusion of duality and the start of karma. And this brings us to the law of reaching. It's just like the principle of pushing hands in martial arts. If you push, your opponent pushes back. If you pull, they follow. Karma proliferates every single time we try to grab at that rainbow or push it away. Whenever you aggressively pursue something, it tends to run away from you. But whenever you really resist it, it runs right towards you. All right, part 3. How do we un-oops ourselves and break free from this? If our reaching is the trap, the solution lies in a surprisingly simple yet deeply profound Tibetan concept known phonetically as gum. And no, we aren't talking about chewing gum here. This isn't something you have to go hunting for. It's the fresh, awake awareness happening right in this very moment. It's clear and radiant like the open sky. It is experiencing your own mind without clinging to concepts, without reaching, and without trying to squish the experience into a neat little box. I absolutely love this visual metaphor. When thoughts arise and vanish in the state of pure awareness, they should leave absolutely zero trace. Imagine writing a word with your finger on the surface of a lake, or watching a bird fly overhead. There's no residue left behind, right? There are no footprints. This perfectly captures how we should let our thoughts naturally dissolve without desperately clinging to them. Now for section 4, mind looking at mind, or gazing into your own eyes. To actually achieve this state of non-attachment, Lama Lina doesn't just leave us hanging with abstract poetry. She gives us incredibly practical mechanics to investigate this. If your thoughts are racing too fast, take a deep breath in through your nose and blow out slowly through your mouth. This helps settle your body's energy, or your chi. Give your mind a visual anchor. Imagine something simple, like a teapot or a bread box. Watch the thought arise and pay special attention to where it goes when it dissolves. And this is absolutely crucial. Never, ever suppress your thoughts. They are the vital sign of your alive nature. This brilliantly illustrates exactly why you shouldn't fight your thoughts. You cannot take a wave out of the ocean. A wave is nothing but bits of water knocking into other bits of water. Similarly, you cannot extract thoughts from the mind. Thoughts are fundamentally made of mind. They're the exact same substance. So fighting them, it's literally like the ocean trying to fight its own wetness. Let's move to Section 5, where we connect all this to relaxing your channels and balancing your mind and body energy. We need to ground these ethereal concepts deeply into our physical bodies. When we are chronically stressed and intensely self-focused, which, let's be honest, is kind of our default setting, our internal channels wrap tightly around us like a cocoon. Lama Lina points out that this extreme tightness is actually the root of things like depression and shyness. You become so wrapped up in perceiving yourself that you literally can't move. But as you relax the mind, these channels naturally expand. They smooth out and aim outward, which instantly eases that suffocating self-focus. Actually, pause right here, because it is so important to inject some of Lama Lina's deeply grounded practical wisdom. These meditations and energy channel practices work wonders, absolutely, but they go with your medications, not instead of them. As she points out, Tibetan magic has always gone hand in hand with common sense, because out there in the high mountain altitudes, you'd be dead without common sense. Which leads us to our final section, Part 6, the illusion of separation and the true interconnectedness of everything. As we successfully loosen those internal channels, we arrive at the ultimate realization, bodhicitta. Now, we often hear this translated simply as compassion, but Lama Lina points out that compassion implies a sort of pity or separation, like an I feeling sorry for you. It's also not a sticky romantic love. Instead, it is a warm, wide open-heartedness. It's the exact feeling you get when someone hands you a purring kitten, but applied to absolutely everything around you. It is the realization of the vast, interpenetrating interconnectedness of all life. Because think about what you are actually made of. You aren't an isolated entity at all. You are a continuous, beautiful amalgamation of everything you've ever interacted with. You are made of every person who's rubbed off on you, every book you've ever read, the distant authors who wrote those books, and, quite literally, even the mosquitoes that have bitten you. Your material and emotional being is entirely interwoven with the rest of the universe. To truly absorb this profound, mind-bending teaching, we turn to a rather, irreverent old Tibetan monastery saying. Basically, humor and complete relaxation are absolutely mandatory for this path. If you tense up, if you try way too hard to grasp enlightenment, you'll block it entirely. Humor, as they say, is the required lubrication for letting go. Once you genuinely realize this, it is the most relaxing experience imaginable. It takes a massive amount of exhausting effort to maintain the illusion of your personality, to protect your ego, to constantly evaluate others while fearing their evaluations of you. When you realize there is no isolated you to protect, you can simply stop struggling. You can stop frantically trying to climb the crab bucket of your own making. So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to investigate as you go about the rest of your day. If your thoughts are just the ocean's waves, and your very self is simply an interwoven tapestry of every person, every book, and yes, even every insect you've ever encountered, who are you, really? Take a deep breath, don't try to answer it with words, and just watch where that thought goes. Thanks so much for exploring this fascinating material with me today. Catch you next time.